Are we live? Are we Oh, we're live. All right. Here we go.
Here we go,
already,
Steelers.
Look at that. People are already jumping on. This is so cute. People, I love being live.
Live is great.
So welcome to the Donut Podcast, part of the Sportscast Network. Welcome to everybody joining live. If you want to join in on the conversation, I think the only way to do that is through YouTube. So if you search the Donut Bag Podcast on YouTube, you could jump on and join in the conversation. I feel like this is Thanksgiving and all the family is home for the holidays.
Right?
It's such a wonderful feeling. I'm just so happy we're all in the same place.
And there we go. Everybody's
it's been
back.
so long since the four of us,
Dad.
all of us have been on together. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Been a while.
Mm-hmm.
It has.
So let's get to the latest news. Something happened. So there was a story out today from Jerry Dulac, and he said, do you want to know why the Steelers offense was doing so well, and then all of a sudden it just went to crap? And the reason is, for some reason, Russell Wilson was doing audibles, and if he sees something he didn't like, he would change it. And Arthur Smith didn't like that, so he wouldn't let him audible anymore. And he said, "No, I want you to run more and run my plays." And the offense and the team went to hell. Right. What the actual heck is going on here? Why on earth would you?
With the talk about how they didn't get along, like that starts to make that conversation make sense a little bit, because I was kind of surprised by the they didn't get along stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in according to the report, it was Week 13 versus Cincinnati, which ironically was also Russell's best game of the year. He was on that, but I don't know, LeeAnn. I think that's a really good point, because is it the machismo? Is it I've got a Super Bowl trophy, you don't. It's working, yours isn't, and it's it really, in a way, sadly, it's par for the course of the Steelers right now.
Yeah.
All of it kind of makes sense a little bit too. And just more, calamity. I can't even talk tonight. Calamity.
Yeah.
Maybe I am sick.
It seems like they, even before Arthur Smith, like, has anybody, like, really, since Ben Roethlisberger, that they've started in a game been able to call audibles? Like, I don't think, I feel like that's a recurring story in Pittsburgh, and it was before Arthur Smith.
Yeah,
it was a big deal with Kenny Pickett. I remember that.
Well,
Kenny Pickett was absolutely
anything but lunch. So
exactly, yeah.
You shouldn't be on a roster, let alone calling audibles.
Right.
I was scared for him when he had to kneel down at the end of that NFC Championship. But
I know.
But, yeah,
I'm not one
to
like harp on Mike Tomlin. Like, I'm not one of those Steeler fans, but it does make me wonder when you hear stories like this, like, where was Tomlin in all of this, that you don't like step in and say, look, this is working or this isn't working. And we all have to set our fucking egos aside. The team was 10-3, and, we just need to like win games. It's good for everybody. And so how do you not, like, with his massive leadership skills, just coach the two of them through whatever that is, you know what I mean, with whoever you felt was right.
Well, and I think that's a problem. Then you have three egos involved with this instead of just two, or one person that could intercede and separate the other two. And you have a train wreck. It's an absolute train wreck. And it didn't get any better after that. Obviously, to LeeAnn's point, if you were to remedy this after that game, there was no remedy. Whatever bad taste was left in people's mouths, it was there. And apparently it stayed there.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's like, it's one thing if it's Justin Fields, you know what I mean? He's still developing. He's a young quarterback, especially, but Russell Wilson, you know what I mean? Like, he's a veteran. He's a pro. He has enough experience to be able to call the shots. And the fact that they didn't let him do it is kind of ridiculous.
Although then you wonder too, because then before, like a week or two ago, all the reports that were coming out were like, oh, I feel so sorry for the coordinators because Mike Tomlin has his hands in everything and they don't really get to decide anything anyhow. So then you start to wonder, like, well, where do all these roads intersect? Like Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson and can't call audibles, and Mike Tomlin's fingers are in everything. And that's a messy situation.
Well, yeah, it's like coming out of the 4-pit tunnel and you got to figure out which way you want to go. right? You know, 5 minutes or 5 seconds, figure out,
Right.
3 lanes to your left, 4 lanes to your right. And
Right.
I'm so happy Mike Tomlin isn't in charge of the Fort Pitt Tunnel. There'll be a lot of wrecks.
You just
Yes.
go in circles.
Right.
There'd be a lot of run plays because we'd be running out of our cars because we'd be in a lot of wrecks.
You'd be saying, "What's that? Why does that sign
Running
say the
into each
standard
other.
is the standard?" You missed the
The
second.
Right.
Yeah.
This team. Sorry, go ahead, Darren.
No, go. You're good. You're good.
This team has a lot of relationship issues that they need to so there was that whole thing with the defense where it just fell apart, and then that playoff game, they looked like they weren't even trying, and it seemed like a lot of people were mad or whatever. And remember, like the last during that losing streak, all you heard was the defense was saying is like, oh, not everybody's on the same page, and there's one person that's messing it all up. It's like there are some major issues. Now we hear this stuff with the offense, and God only knows what's going on with George Pickens. There were so many issues with this team that they need to resolve. It's like, guys, you're not good enough. The Eagles have similar issues, but they're going to the Super Bowl. They win, 11, 12, 13 games. Yeah. The Steelers aren't good enough to be this much of a dysfunctional.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you can sit there and say, well, the run first mentality isn't working. Well, tell that to the Eagles. It sure as hell worked out pretty good for them this year, and they're running right there. And I feel like they actually may have a chance of knocking out Kansas City, despite the ridiculous kind of partisanship they've got lately. But still, we'll see. We'll see it. I believe when I see it, but I wouldn't bet on the Eagles. That's for sure.
Yeah, the Eagles are built better though, right? Like their offensive line is just phenomenal. Even after Kelsey left, right? Like they haven't really missed a beat. So it's like, well, when you have an offensive line that gels, you know what I mean, that works together well, you can do more, you have more flexibility. You can run the ball, but obviously they have Saquon Barkley as well, right? And we have no answer at all right now at the running back position. So it's like,
if these guys were,
I mean, Saquon Barkley is a factor, but it's that offensive line is unbelievable.
Right.
And I really think you could. I mean, look, I'm not taking anything away from Jalen Hurts, but you could put some other quarterback in there, and I think they would be as successful or nearly as successful because that line is so good. And I think that's it's the Andy Weidel factor. In the 9 years since he was hired by the Eagles in 2016, they've been to 3 Super Bowls and have won one. They've got one pending, right? And so you got to hope. I mean, you saw him come into Pittsburgh and start working on building up our trenches, and we're a ways to go. But I mean, I feel like we have to be on that same right track. Do you know what I mean? This isn't about sexy draft picks. This is about building those trenches and
right.
a different thought process. If those linemen that we've drafted the past 2 years get it together, this offseason and come back strong.
It's sexy versus smart, and the Eagles have been smart. I mean, even last year when they faltered a little bit, they got a great draft pick out of it. They needed Cooper DeJean, and we could have used Cooper DeJean personally, and we could use him still, and look how good. A big reason the Eagles had a fall off is their pass defense was horrid last year. It was one of the worst in the league. And they turn around, do a 180. They bring Cooper DeJean in. They draft him. They bring in another free agent. And all of a sudden, they're doing great. The offensive line is a great point, too. I mean, they're opening up holes that are insane. And Saquon is a great runner. He's probably the best runner in the NFL without question. But, I mean, it's still you put those two together, and again, Najee's going to be gone. I don't think there's any reason he's coming back. But if there's one thing I will say to Najee, or if Mike Tomlin or someone's getting a call about Najee, if you're honest about it, you're like, he has run behind a crap offensive line now for almost his entire career here.
The Steelers did it completely backwards. The Eagles got their line. They made sure that their line was good, and then they got the running back. The Steelers got their running back first behind an awful offensive line, and now they're trying to catch up and trying to do the line. But the problem is with the Steelers, the line isn't there yet. The line I think they almost led the league in rushing attempts. The Steelers did, but they were so bad at it. It's yes, they tried to run a lot, but it was but a lot of times it failed and it screwed up the whole team. And now even Russell Wilson's like, hey, yo, this isn't working. They're stacking the box. Maybe we should, instead of running and failing, maybe we should try to pass. And apparently that wasn't good enough for Arthur Smith. Like that was almost the entire thing that did in the 2024 Steelers. You thought you could run. You wanted to be this bully ball. You wanted to be this hard team, but you didn't have the offensive line for it. I'm sure Zach Frazier and McCormick, I'm sure they probably just got tired at the end of the season. Dan Moore, I don't know what the heck happened to him. He started out good and he went to crap. And then Broderick Jones, I don't know. Who knows what the heck's going on with him. So you just hope it gets better for next year. But they just kept trying to jam this square peg in the round hole, and it just wasn't working. Instead of going with what worked, they tried to make it work, and it just didn't happen.
Well, and it's funny, we talked about week 13. It was after week 13, the offensive line, the injuries added up, and they started playing worse. So, I think there may be something to that whole chemistry, right?
I think rookie wall too, like some of those young guys, just hit that like rookie wall.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's why I say, I think you're lying to yourself if you don't feel the Steelers are in a rebuilding. They're in a complete rebuild right now. And obviously the last couple of draft picks where they did try to strengthen that line or go for the sexy pick, to your point, it hasn't been too sexy. Either, and honestly, I still have said this, and I've said this all along. The offensive line coach was a horrible hire when they did it. He's got to be one of the worst in the league, and they've done nothing, and he's got to go. Now, you can't, obviously, you've invested this much in these offensive linemen. You can't keep letting these draft picks go after 2 years. I mean, Kenny Pickett was the first all the way since back in 98. So usually our draft picks, they invest in them, they work out some way. I still have some faith, or you got to have some faith that these draft picks will work out. But honestly, I think you got to bring in a new coach and give it a new look. You have to. I mean, you can't do the same thing you did last year and expect it to work.
Well, he's under contract, and what the Steelers don't. Yeah. Like, okay, we're just gonna let him, keep going.
Well,
it's unfortunate, but
let's talk about that. Arthur Rooney II kept doing interviews. His one time of the year that he actually has to do some work, and he said, we're not adding to the coaching staff, and oh, by the way, I'm going to be here till I die, and oh, by the way, we're just not going to change anything. So what's been going on is not acceptable, but we're not making any changes. Yay!
So I said this yesterday on a different show that all of this, like fans in this uproar over Art Rooney saying I'm not retiring, is silly because his dad didn't retire and his grandfather didn't retire. They kind of secretly passed the baton. One day you open the media guide and it's changed.
Exactly. It's
their title is different, but they're still within the organization.
Yeah, they don't have a big party and a parade and cake and all of that when they pass the baton. So I wasn't surprised that he said that. I don't think that changes that he'll be passing the baton to Daniel in the next couple of years. I mean, this kid has held like every job from like jock strap washer all the way up to like scout and wide receivers coach or whatever to in the organization to be ready for this. So I think from what you hear from people, insiders, he's smart, he knows what he's doing, he's ready to take over. So I still think he'll take over. I don't think Art wants to go out failing with Mike Tomlin like as a failure. I think he wants to leave on a high note, whether that's a playoff win, like whatever he perceives that as.
Yeah, and it's
a playoff win. That's how low that's how low the standard has gone.
We just want to win one playoff game. It doesn't have to be two.
If we win a playoff game, we're having a parade.
Wouldn't you call this season a success? If we'd won that game against the Ravens and then lost our next one, I mean, you wouldn't be happy, but you would say like, okay, well, that was an improvement.
Right. Consider it a success. Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel that 2024 was an improvement over 2023, even though the record was the same and the result was the same?
No.
Like I do.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Slightly, because the offense was better.
It was
although
better.
We don't know what the heck's going to happen.
That's true.
it was it was better than when Kenny Pickett was running it the year before that,
which doesn't say much, right?
But I felt like we had some decisive wins, which we didn't really have. Like, just because the record was the same, like those wins with Pickett were like last second comebacks. Do you know what I mean? Which is not that that's a bad thing.
17-14
like
every game was that.
Every game. Do you know what I mean? I felt like we saw some like decisive wins. I felt like we won against some decent teams like the Commanders. We beat the, put major points on the board against the Bengals, which is something we hadn't done in like 100 years. So, I mean, I felt like there was some, improvement.
They took 2 steps forward, but then they took 2 steps back.
Yeah. Yeah. But the end of the season, man, that was like the, eraser on the chalkboard. So frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, to me, and I'm not trying to be the pessimist person, but I don't see much of the improvement. I mean, yeah, everything you said is true, but and I've said this all along, the Steelers' biggest problem is they don't think they have one. That's evident by Rooney's, we're not changing anything. Well, okay, but next year you're either going to barely squeak by again or you're going to stink. And I've told Joe for weeks now, stink. I don't care. Get 4 or 5 wins. That's fine because that means we get a higher draft pick. How do you think we got the Troy Polamalu's of the world? How do you think we got the Big Bens of the world? How do you think we got the Hines Wards of the world? We had a great second-round pick that with 2 round picks that year. You need to start. I mean, I'm fine with that. This whole holier than thou, hey, never a losing season is such a bunch of crap and so overrated. It's ridiculous. And, if Rooney wants to die on this sword that Tomlin's this great coach, which he's not, then good, go ahead because the legacy you're leaving behind now is not good. Daniel's there. And I've said this being at the training camp and seeing it. The difference between Art and Dan was at every single practice. Dan was involved. Dan was there every day. Dan was on the sidelines. Dan was at everything you could imagine. Art's not. And and I've said this 100 times, I'll stick to it. Since Dan's died, this program has been going downhill. Yeah. And if Art really did embrace this program, he should just step aside. I'm not surprised at what he said either. But he should step aside and hand this reins to Daniel because guess what? Daniel's doing the things Dan did.
Right. Well, exactly. He'll have done all kinds of different roles like LeeAnn was talking about. He'll have done like everything. You know what I mean? Behind the scenes. He's the chosen one. Over.
He's been groomed for this for years.
For years.
But Art has the ultimate decision to make on Tomlin. Obviously, we're not going to get rid of him this year, not next year, but at some point, Tomlin's contract is going to come up in a couple years. And what if we have another 2 years like this one? No playoff losses, 9-8, 10-7, barely getting the playoffs, and then you get destroyed. Are we doing? And we do this every single year. At what point are we going to decide? Come on, let's make a change. At that point, Tomlin will have been here almost 20 years. Chuck Noll had 20 years. Cowher had 15. What are we doing? What is this? What is he, the Pope? At some point, we have to make a decision here.
I think,
and it's an appointment.
It's not necessarily 100% indictment on Mike. I mean, I honestly believe this. He could go wherever he goes. He's going to take that team. And I would say, hopefully, because it proves me right, he can go to a team that's struggling and he'll take them to the playoffs. I almost guarantee it. He's that kind of coach of players, whatever. But that you just need that change. Look what the Eagles have done. They got rid of Andy Reid, who's a full ballot first, no question Hall of Fame coach. Probably one of the greatest coaches in 30 years here in the NFL. And they got rid of him. You need to make those kind of things. You need to make those kind of decisions, and you got to go for that.
Every team struggles, right, at some point, and they just have to rip off the Band-Aid and do it because it's gonna be a process. You know what I mean? Like once they decide to make significant changes, it's not going to happen overnight, right? So it's like you might as well.
Fans are mad now. Wait till we make that change.
Right? Yeah.
Because they're going to expect like we hire some genius that I don't even know who that is that they think we're going to hire, and that everything is going to be like magically improved, and that's not the case. Like people keep citing like John Gruden going to Tampa. Well, he went to like a ready-made team that only needed a coach. Like they didn't need work. Do you know what I mean? The Steelers still need work. So I don't know that, like, I think getting rid of Tomlin is necessarily the answer. I'd like to see, if it's true, Tomlin back out of having his fingers in the offense and defense. Like, I don't know how Rooney polices that, but I would like to see like that as a change. Do you know
You'd
what I
like
mean?
to see that, but you're not going to. Not when Mike.
Yeah,
Tomlin.
hire
Yeah, I
smart
don't
people
know.
and let them do their job, right? I mean,
Mike
that's
Tomlin's coaching
Okay.
tree stinks for a reason.
Because
Right.
I don't believe that Rooney's not changing anything. I just don't think he's enlightening fans as to what that is. Because I keep telling people, like, what would he have said that would have made you happy other than firing Tomlin? Like,
Right.
nothing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, he said last year he was so upset that we hadn't won a playoff game. And that's all anybody can talk about is you said this and you're not doing anything. So this year he's going to be like, you know what? I'm just going to be like, hey, we aren't the Jaguars.
But the problem with that was, and I think most managers are boss in a company with, she or he is going to say this, if you're not happy, but then you turn right around, and you give Tomlin a 3-year extension when he didn't deserve one. And
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That was mistake number one.
He did deserve one. That's the thing is I think he thinks he did deserve one.
Yeah, that's a problem.
You don't think he didn't deserve one doesn't mean that the Rooneys don't think that.
Right.
I think they do.
But I think the majority of people didn't, I just think,
Mhm.
and I said that to Joe. I mean, I thought last year, maybe wishful thinking, maybe as a fan or whatever it may be, that press conference last year. And I talked to Jerry and some of the other media guys, and they all felt the same way. They'd never seen a Mike Tomlin press conference like they did last year. He was emotional. He started talking about how he maybe let down Pouncey. Pouncey is a Hall of Fame championship player. I never got him there.
Yeah.
Never got him there. And he opened up. He kind of got emotional about it. And I thought maybe we're finally seeing a raw Mike Tomlin that maybe we are going to start seeing changes. And Omar comes in. We make some other changes. It's all great. But here we back are. And when we had this press conference a few weeks ago, it's back to standard.
And then what happened? Because that a year ago he didn't get his contract extension yet. Right. Then he got his contract extension. He's like, I can do whatever I want. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose because I'm here forever. Yeah, I'm the Pope. Yay.
It's like I'm untouchable, right? It's just I don't know.
There's two main problems that I have with Tomlin, and it's just philosophical. He believes that you win with running and defense. Maybe that happened in 2009, 2008. Maybe that happened 15 years ago. That is not the case anymore. It is a completely different league.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you. Look at the teams that made the playoffs. Look at the teams that are going to the Super Bowl. The Eagles run the ball. The Chiefs run the ball. They use that to open up their passing game. But unless you have Patrick Mahomes or I don't know, Joe Burrow, you can't be this like total passing team. Like I think that that was the case a few years ago, but I think that the NFL's offenses are starting to shift back to more of this run-based offense. And I think, because this is my thing. I think that everybody changed their defenses to be these shifty, quick defenders to go get, track down Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and bring down these really quick receivers. And then what you realized if you're an offensive coordinator and a good one is like, okay, well now I can catch him by running.
Now I can run.
Because they're not prepared for that. So I think offenses are starting to swing back. So, I don't think the Steelers are as outdated as everybody thinks they are. I just don't think that they're equipped to do what like the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Redskins, the Commanders are doing with their run game.
And that's fine. And you could run, you could win with running and stuff, but the Chiefs and Eagles also have a good quarterback and good receivers. Yeah. But about winning with defense first. I mean, look how the Steelers are constructed. They spend more on defense than any other team. They spend $30 million on TJ Watt. TJ Watt gets held like egregiously every single game, and the league is okay with that because they want to protect their quarterbacks. Also, TJ Watt gets tired or hurt every year too.
But the defense is so expensive and then falls apart at the end of the year, and then they're not like even Cameron Hayward admitted they weren't gelling or whatever he called it at the end of the year. Like, what is that? Like, we're not communicating.
No, I think that's what I'm saying, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head here a lot. I mean, it's even like TJ Watt, right? And we talked about. I thought when Myles Garrett called him out, and we'll get to Myles Garrett in a minute, I hope. When Myles Garrett called him out, I said to Joe, this is now the time either TJ Watt's going to step up and say, F that, I'm pissed and I'm going to come out.
I'll show you.
And he went further downhill, and that's just been that downhill slide, ever since week 13, and they've just not been able to get out of it. And again, I really felt like they just did not want to win that game or didn't have no interest in beating, the Ravens, or thought that they could beat them or whatever it may be. The locker room's lost. It's a bad place right now. I mean, the 10-7 numerical record is the only thing that really kept anything above water. Because to me, they're much closer to like 7-10, and being a struggling team than they are now. And you look at Myles Garrett, right? Demands a trade publicly, which I thought was interesting, but he's not stupid. Because, once in my life, I got to be on Media Row for Super Bowl Sunday. And let me tell you, when you sit around all week, you're there to talk about one game, right? One game. How much can you really talk about the Super Bowl unless you're maybe a Kansas City or a Philadelphia news outlet, right? So you have all these other, there's a team there from Erie this week. Like, why the hell are you guys there? But they're there. They're reporting live from Media Row. I'm not sure why, but they are. So guess what? This guy comes out and says, I want to demand a trade, and he does it during Super Bowl week. There was a reason for that. Because now he has a lot of people talking about that. A lot of GMs there. There's GMs there all the time getting interviewed by radio stations from all over the country. And now it was very smart publicity-wise for him. Also a very reflection on how poorly the Cleveland Browns are run. And we're not quite there yet. I still feel we're better run than the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, God,
but we're not much further in the way things are going right now.
Well, Myles Garrett wants to leave, and the only reason he wants to leave is because he wants to be a winner. He doesn't just want to be as the Browns GM said, well, he's going from Cleveland to Canton, which if you've done that drive, it's about, I don't know, half an hour or something like that. They're very close to each other. And even Myles Garrett in his statement says, like, I don't care about going to Canton. I want to win. Well, Myles Garrett wants to leave because he wants to win.
Did you guys watch Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
Not the last two.
Yeah, me neither. But I was like so disillusioned with Myles Garrett. Like, look, I can admit, like, look, I hate the dude's guts, right? Like, it's all football stuff. I can watch other players that I strongly dislike on the field and have all kinds of respect for them. And, Lamar Jackson or something and what they do in their craft. But I was blown away by how, like, me, Myles Garrett was. And, like, those talks, like, all he talked about was, like, you got to get yours and get your bag. And this is about me. And it's about individual accomplishments and achievements. I mean, so don't you feel like he just was doing this out loud like this, so disrespectful to his organization, so he could, like, paint them into a corner? Because now everybody in the world knows, like, they have no leverage. They have no bargaining power. He doesn't want to go back because otherwise
there's no way he could come back. There's no way he could ever play another down for the Browns.
Like, well, what would you give us for him? Like, in theory, if we were going to shop TJ Watt around, which we're not, you call GMs and you'd be like, well, what will you give us for him? It's going to be the mother load for us to give.
Oh yeah, he'll get two first round picks.
But now he wants to leave. I mean, you shot them in the foot.
Right. Yeah, and sadly, to me that would totally disillusion me. I already can't stand the guy. I don't like him. And I don't know what he's paying Pro Football Forecast because, and I'm not being a homer. There's no Steeler gear on me tonight. That's not for any reason, but other than I just didn't put it on. He didn't deserve to win Defensive Player of the Year. That should have been TJ Watt, and it was clear it should have been TJ Watt. That's not being a Steeler fan. That's being a football fan. But yeah, and it's just, I mean, I can't imagine, but some team like the Cowboys, somebody at Denver, somebody's going to throw money at it and the draft picks, and they're going to do it. And here it does. It sets up like a Herschel Walker thing. Either the Browns will play this right and use the draft picks, but they're the Browns. And anybody's going to F it up. It's going to be the Cleveland Browns. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. I'm not saying that like I hope it happens. What kind of? But and that's the thing. But you're right. I mean, if you look at him, he has 2 years on a contract, and they could actually put a third-year franchise tag on him too. I don't think
that never goes well, though. You try to force guys to stay.
And you're right. You're 100% right. That, I mean, and you are too, Joe. I mean, you can't come back. He's not coming back.
No. But what's funny is that even before he requested a trade, and then after he requested a trade, Cleveland they were almost in front of it, right? Saying before he requested a trade, we're not trading you.
Yeah,
and then you request a trade, and then they're like, we're still not trading you. And it's like
they're trying to like save face so that maybe they'll do like the Jedi mind trick on other GMs. Will be like, he didn't really do that. Like, we're not letting that happen. You still got to give us a lot for him. When they're going to be like, yeah, we're not that stupid.
Yeah. And
what's he gonna do? Sit out the season? Like,
probably.
I mean, he may just, if they keep him, he may just sit out the season. But it's like that just becomes a big old mess.
No, that's a great question, and I think again to the point either Allison or LeeAnn made was I think his ego, he'll sit right out. He won't care.
We talked about it in my house. My husband's grew up in DC. He's historically a Commanders fan, although he's been rooting for the Steelers. And, they were immediately like pegged as one of the possible landing spots for him. And, we were talking about it, and he's like, personally don't like the guy. He's like, but I like the selection. He said, but I mean, I'm really concerned about what you're giving up for him. You're talking about a 2025 first round pick, a 2026 first round pick, a 25 second round pick is what somebody like Diana Rossini or somebody had floated on Twitter. And he was saying, then you're looking at a player who's like almost 32 by the time you're done paying him off. And he said, and then you have to start wondering, like, how much is he really worth? You know what I mean? So it's easy to say he's like one of the best defensive players in the league and he's worth all this money. But, he is getting to that age where things could happen. He could be great for 5 more years or 2. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And you look at where the Commanders, Redskins, whatever, it looks like maybe the Redskins getting here soon. They did that once with a guy named Albert Hainsworth. It didn't work out.
They've done it a lot.
It cost them a lot. And they don't want to go back to being a Dan Snyder Washington Commanders. They want to be the Washington Commanders are now. Because, if I'm a free agent, a younger one, I would want to go to Washington. Yeah. They've got everything going from there. Very young, good offensive line, decent running game. Receivers are coming up. Great quarterback. They have some holes to fill, but they can do that through the draft. If they want to start, they do not want to start trading these draft picks away.
Yeah,
they are only a few players away from probably being a Super Bowl contender, and they can do that through the draft. To your point, don't trade that away for this bum.
That's what I think. I think if they trade away those draft picks, it potentially sets them back. Because you're right, they are they exceeded expectations for 2024. They're such a great team, and you hate to see them.
You'll be the Dan Snyder Washington Redskins that won 2 playoff games in 24 years. And I think that's what we're all kind of talking about. Other than that change in ownership and leadership is, you bring in, see what the Commanders have done. And that's maybe what Daniel Rooney can do and new coaching and all that.
We've never
Sorry if I cut you off.
That the Commanders / Redskins did. I mean, that was miserable for a lot of years.
No wonder your husband.
He was the worst owner.
Coaches, constantly go through quarterbacks. Everybody they brought in was the answer. My husband loves to say that their favorite thing to do was like overpay for washed up Steelers that we weren't going to use anymore. I mean. They won
the off season every year.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Every year when we lived there, whatever they did that off season, they were going to win. The fans were like, we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm like, you people are delusional. Like you're not sniffing the playoffs. You know what I mean? And you felt so bad for the fan base, but I mean, it was just so much mediocrity. It was like the Browns where they just couldn't get the right draft picks. They couldn't make good choices. They would sell the farm on these guys and then have no first round picks for years and years. And yeah, it's just Hainsworth was a great example. I remember watching him carted off the field.
Yeah. A Myles Garrett trade would only work for a team like Buffalo, Philadelphia if they lose the Super Bowl, maybe Baltimore, something that's one player away. But like if Dallas did it,
send him to Baltimore. I'll be so mad if we still have to face him in the AFC North.
Yeah, that's the only thing I said to Joe I said to Joe, at least I don't have to watch him play twice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You would think, we all know the Browns are stupid, but you would think they wouldn't be that stupid, right?
Right.
Well, there's no way. They were great point. It's the Browns.
Yeah, I think it would be. I could see him going to something like Vegas or whatever. But yeah, you're right though. He wants to go to somebody who's right on the doorstep of winning a Super Bowl, or somebody like
Yeah.
the Bills that are were like one game away from.
I would not be shocked if they traded a Doc Brown and go back and trade Myles Garrett to themselves in 1994.
Right.
That's
Are
the
one of
Browns.
those teams like that really are like right there knocking on the doorstep, really in need of like a Myles Garrett? Is there something
Right, that's true. That's a good point.
for? You know what I mean?
Detroit Lions, the Cowboys, something like that. I think you're right on.
Somebody else said the Bills, and I was like, I thought he said he wanted to go to a team that had the potential to win a Super Bowl. It's not the Bills.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, that's.
I feel so bad. I feel so bad for Browns fans. You do not deserve that team and that owner. They had everything going for them when they had Baker Mayfield. They had a good quarterback. They were on the way up.
Yeah.
And then they get rid of him, and the worst trade in sports history. And look, you ruined Nick Chubb's career. You ruined Myles Garrett's prime. It's sad, and they're going to suffer for years because of that trade and signing him to that insane contract.
Yeah,
Sad.
and now they're going to leave the city of Cleveland, and they're going to build a dome because they need a dome in Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like it's always just negative temperatures and snowing all the time. So
yep, but you can have concerts. But now they're talking like Buffalo's is really well designed. It's they can dome it for a concert, but they leave it open air, and they have the design around it so the snow actually stays off the seats, but the snow can still get on the field. It's really
it covers the
cool.
seats, but it just leaves the field open. It's really cool.
Yeah, but no, I think Kevin Stefanski's not a bad coach. I think he's a good coach. But
he's hot.
Okay, there you go. All right,
is he cute?
LeeAnn Lexi's. Allison wants to date.
Yeah, I mean he's.
What about McVay? Is he cute?
Stefanski, if he called you and was like, Allison, I saw you on the Donut Bag podcast, and I'm entering you free for dinner next.
That would be awesome. Sure, I'm gonna put my number up there.
Steelers fan.
Now you're on the Brownies podcast, and the men of Allison's boudoir here. We have
I can
Kevin
see.
Stefanski.
I'm looking at him now. I can see he's kind of cute. Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah, good looking.
Handsome man.
What about
No, not our.
I'm not getting into who's the cutest NFL coach. That's just I don't have a banner for that. So
this
I can't
is going off the rails now.
It's
the off season though.
Let's change the subject. Let's talk about wide receivers. Cooper Kupp said that the team said that they're going to trade him.
Another disgruntled player.
Should the Steelers try to get Cooper Kupp?
Sure.
Yeah, based on the fact that they have not a damn person really on that receiving corps that's worth a hoot right now.
Right.
I mean, he's 31. Misconception is he misses a lot. He's actually only missed one game in the last 2 years. The fall off has been his touchdown production, right? 3 years ago, 16 touchdowns, player of the year, best wide receiver in football. He's only had 5 touchdowns each of the last 2 years, right? So touchdown production's gone down, but he's 31 to, a couple year points there, but all of us saying about Myles Garrett's age. So you worry a little bit about that, but our receiving corps is so bad. Yeah. Right. I mean, why not? You can't bringing him in does not make you worse. Let's put it that way.
I think if he's the right price, like I think he's got to be cheap. Like he's old, he's injured. He's definitely. I think people hear
he's 31.
You make him sound like Mr. Burns.
Football years, come on.
37 or 38. Like like this past year after that injury, he definitely didn't bounce back and look like the same Cooper Kupp. So who knows? Maybe the offseason will do him some good and he'll be like a new guy. But I'm concerned that he's going to try to price himself like Cooper Kupp of 3 years ago. He's not that guy
and
anymore.
You're not 2021 Cooper Kupp.
But if we got him at the right price, and then you had him with Pickens, and then we figured out Calvin Austin, like I think that like a decent little
and draft someone else
there, and draft somebody. Roman Wilson, hopefully, is
who
this year. Do you know what I mean?
Missing.
And so then it's not a bad group, but I think fans need to like seriously mentally prepare themselves for the fact that George Pickens is going to be playing for the Steelers this season. I don't see any way they get rid of him. I mean, they don't have anybody.
Right. They can't afford to. It's not about finance. Yeah, your plan B didn't work at all.
Right.
Plan B had worked, who knows? But Mike Williams is going to be gone, and I don't think
Maybe
they're picking a lot
you
of the
get
other.
like T. Higgins. Do you know what I mean? If you get like T. Higgins, if that really happened, which it's not going to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
If it did, like then you could afford to do something with Pickens, but you can't move off of him because you don't have another number one talent out there. Cooper Kupp isn't going to be.
No, your glaring thing is
that he was a
6'4", 200 pounds, 26 years old in the prime of his career. I mean, it's totally a different thing.
Well, I think though, if anything, the Bills and the Chiefs prove that you don't need to have like a big name wide receiver.
No, you
right?
don't
but
have
they are the
Steelers do,
right? So it's not. Yeah, we don't have any quarterback to be able to do that. Right. I think Chris Godwin seems kind of like an attractive offer to me. I mean, I know it would be it would be more expensive than Cooper Kupp for sure. But it's like if we're thinking forward thinking, right? Like Pickens isn't going to be a Steeler after the 2025 season,
right?
So it's like, well, maybe you start to get your ducks in a row a little bit and suffer for it.
But that's the thing. He thinks he's T. Higgins, and he's just not.
Right?
Because the thing is with T. Now he came out this year saying a little bit of, I guess, not even controversy, a little bit of controversy maybe in the beginning of Bengals training camp. But other than that, he hasn't mouthed off the whole way. Next year, I mean, he won't shut up. Pickens will be, blabbing his mouth, saying all he wants to say, no filter, no discipline. It'll be bad.
Here's what I want. I want somebody on the caliber of a Cooper Kupp, Godwin, Devontae Adams, Christian, somebody like two established guys and Pickens and a draft pick. And then if Pickens mouths off, go ahead. You know why Pickens was such a problem this past season? Because he was literally the only good wide receiver we had. And so we had to put up with him. But you know what? If he's the third best guy, go cry all you want, bro. Go cry over there because you're not even going to make the field if you pull that crap.
Yeah. I don't think Pickens was anywhere near as bad as he was the year before last. I mean, I know that the offense was different. There was Kenny Pickett. They had a little bit more success on offense, but it seemed like, it maybe just me, but it seemed like
he was a lost cause. He's
right,
a lost cause. All the stupid stuff like in the Chiefs game where he didn't run the right route, which resulted in the interception. What was the game where they had I think it was the Browns game in Cleveland where they threw the Hail Mary and instead of trying to get the ball, he was fighting somebody.
Right.
Stuff like that. He is a lost cause. I guarantee they've been trying to talk to him for 3 years now. It's like, hey, dude, you're a nutcase. Please be professional. And obviously he does not listen at all. So he's not going to listen anymore. But he will be less of a problem if there are other options. And we say, you know what, Pickens, go ahead, cry. Right. That's not acceptable. You're sitting on the bench because we have other options.
The thing I'd say also back to Cooper Kupp, and I think the Penguins have had this problem for years now, is getting older in the NFL is not getting better. I wouldn't mind.
Unless you're Cam Hayward.
Right. Yeah, right. Unless you're somehow Cam Hayward is miracle juice, right? Like Gary Stevens back in the day with the Penguins, or Gary Roberts back with the Penguins in his special drink. Remember that? That's the only thing. If you bring in Cooper Kupp, I mean, is Justin Fields a quarterback? I'd be kind of okay with that. That might balance that kid out. I just another season with Wilson and him. It's just I don't know. I just don't like it.
Well, to me, we just didn't have like a good second option to Pickens, and so as soon as defense is figured out, if you shut him down, like they have nowhere else to go,
right?
Nowhere. Then all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know why we weren't working in like that Darnell Washington pass, like that worked when we used it, but like we didn't try it often enough, Even Mike Williams,
right? Well, the Ravens
why did we even get him?
Right. Yeah. Oh, that worked. We don't want to do that again.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Crap we've been doing over and over again.
Arthur Smith was mad that Mike Williams wasn't a running back. Maybe that was it.
But from that Chiefs game on, that's what everyone was doing. Free safety was cheated to his side, and the cornerback was already on him, and they kind of shut him down. And that's the last thing I'll say too.
Patterson off the buffet line and onto the field. He had priorities.
Yeah, that's so weird. Still, the allegiance to him is so weird.
Yeah, we had to give Cordarrelle Patterson the dang ball.
Right.
Yeah,
don't want him upset.
And he's well in his 30s. That's what I mean. Like you bring in Cooper Kupp, okay, but we got to get younger somewhere. And you just, and the offensive line's, I guess, young, but it's not a good young. And it's like, that's why to me, it's so hard to get enthusiastic about anything, because I just don't feel like we have hardly anything in place and all over this team. It's not like we can go in next year saying, well, defense was miraculous this year. It wasn't. The wide receiving core it wasn't. The running backs, it's going to be a mess because Najee's going to leave. The offensive line is somewhat in a wreck. And we have a big, as Joe's about to, I just saw it there, the bumper there, but we have a quarterback issue again. It's just like, holy crap.
When you try to build through the draft, how many people are you going to get through the draft? 4?
Right. Yeah.
It's not going to be 1972.
If they hit.
Right. It's not 1972.
I'm a little bit more optimistic about the offensive line because I hope that, Broderick Jones going back to his natural position, Troy Fautanu staying healthy, right? I mean, these are things that so many ifs, but it's like, if that happens and they're still super young, right? The offensive line is like super duper young. I don't know what it is in terms of, per team or whatever, but we have to have one of the youngest offensive lines. And McCormick and Frazier are badass.
McCormick outplayed his draft selection, if you ask me. I thought he did really well. I mean, you look at like all the injuries and disruptions that line had, all the players who played who weren't expecting to play. Do you know what I mean? Whatever is going on with Broderick Jones, I mean, it feels like, it's going to naturally get better. And I think this year's a big year for Jones. He's got to show that he's not a bust. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's playing on the wrong side of the line. I hope that's it.
I hope so too. And that's why I was advocating for a new offensive line coach, because if there's anything that's young and can maybe possibly improve and be a glimmer of hope, it's that offensive line. But I think they need a new philosophy. I think they need to have a new coach come in and bring that out in them.
Huge year for Broderick Jones. Put up or shut up. If it doesn't work on the left side, hey buddy, you're in bust territory. And then we got a big problem because we got to spend a first-round draft pick on that dude, and we got to start all over again, and that's bad.
That'd be back to back. Kenny Pickett's gone. He'd be gone. He'd be horrible.
Right.
Najee, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like, I think you could take Najee and almost similar to like a Myles Garrett thing. I think if you take Najee and put him in like Dallas or Buffalo or Washington, or something like that. Yeah. Or I was thinking more like some of the teams were on the cusp or right there. I mean, he could thrive. And I don't know.
He needs to go to a team where he's a good number 2. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really
go to
see
a team
him
with a good line.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know that he really has like bell cow, right? Like,
yeah, no, I agree.
For the whole time we've had him, though, that he has been misused on this offense.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's part of the problem. I think people blame him for stuff that is either Matt Canada or Arthur Smith or Pat Myers or whoever's fault. Do you know what I mean? Because he's not being used properly. And you see those flashes that when he is used the right way, he does really good things. And then they're like, nope, right back to doing this with you.
And
that toss play to Najee did not work one damn time, and they kept doing it.
But let's keep like jamming that square peg into the round hole. I also think that fans are really delusional in the belief that Jaylen Warren is going to step up and be like Saquon Barkley when
I'm with you.
And that is not happening. I have nothing against Jaylen Warren. I think he's a really great complimentary back, but he is not your speed breaker featured running back.
Right.
No.
Yeah, but until Warren came along, right? That's how they were doing with Naj. It was like until Warren came along and showed that he had what it took to get in the starting lineup. They were running Naj, and we talked about it all the time, right? They were running the wheels off of Naj, and
right. The kid way outplayed what he was supposed to. I mean, undrafted, you know what I mean? He far exceeded like anybody's expectations. So it's not a knock on him. The kid's great.
Right.
You have to use people the way they're meant to be used. And all of this stuff we're doing where we're playing people in the wrong ways, like we did with Minka and, whatever was going on with Cam Sutton, who's terrible. And I hope doesn't
get him out of this team.
Oh God. I really think that he's a big part of what happened with the defensive collapse.
Yes.
I think things were going fine. And then Cam Sutton started and everything fell apart.
Another thing of them trying to shoehorn him in, just it didn't work, but they kept insisting on doing it.
Well, you can see on film at times where like Minka is having to go like across the field to pick up for him because he blows coverage, and that's a huge issue.
Yeah, and that, I mean, and I guess there's the thing too with you're bringing these older guys, and I'm not sure why you're showing favoritism. The one that got me, especially second half of the year, was Beanie Bishop. Beanie Bishop was arguably the rising guy, and you go back to Cam Sutton,
right?
And despite the guy's a jerk for what he did. I mean, we won't even go there, I guess. But I mean, he can stop the run somewhat, but he's horrible in pass coverage, and they were getting killed. Like, why the hell, would you award? And I think that was part of the problem. Nobody came out and said that. But when Cam said we weren't gelling, and then they were starting to blame guys, to me it was like, here's Beanie Bishop. You didn't bench Troy. And I keep going back to some of those old Steeler teams. Well, at least the beginning of this millennium. One of the things they did right was they drafted well and they did well in free agency. Larry Foote, probably arguably one of the best free agent signings in the history of the franchise. And that's where that's where you're at now. You got to draft well, which they right now not looking good, and you got to play this free agent market right. But if you're going to play this free agent market right, they didn't bring in a 32-year-old Larry Foote. They brought in a 26-year-old Larry Foote. And that's where you got to play this right. Now, if you look at those receivers you mentioned, there is not, no matter what you look at, which list, most of those receivers for free agents are into their 30s. There's not very many 28 or 27s. A lot of them are over 30, including Chris Godwin. And it's just like, the wide receiver free agency market's not great. I think you got to try to stick it well in the draft a little bit, but I wouldn't mind bringing some of them in. It just that the youth thing kind of worries me.
Yeah.
Outside of the offensive line, which should be good and is young.
Right.
But yeah.
So one of the things Rooney said was, well, we're probably not going to keep Russ and Fields. It's going to be one or the other. Okay. Especially what we just heard about Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith. Russell Wilson said he wants to come back, but why would you want to come back if you got to deal with this crap with Arthur Smith telling you you're not allowed to audible? And is it because
Pete Flat said, I love it here and the plan has always been to stay, and then you find out they weren't getting along? I was so surprised.
I don't think that Russ would be the kind of guy, like, even if he doesn't want to stay in Pittsburgh, he's not going to come out and be like, I don't want to be in Pittsburgh anymore.
You know what I mean? Said anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm hopeful we can work something out, but like, I love it here. And it's always been the plan to stay. Like, that's
right. That's
pretty whatever.
Yeah.
Specific, or adamant or whatever.
For me, I don't feel like it matters because we're not going to, the Bengals and the Ravens, whatever we do at quarterback, or if we bring in some decent receiver, to put out there with Pickett, it doesn't matter. We're not going anywhere. What?
Is Joe, if he's okay? I look over.
Oh, he's joking?
I'm not joking. I'm not, Allison said nothing matters. It's like, okay, I'm just going to jump off a bridge then. Like, none of this matters.
Damn.
What are we doing here?
We're always going to be hopeful, and most Steelers fans anyway.
But I think that Russell Wilson took a lot of heat for the collapse of the games at those last 5 games, and I think he was like the 7th worst part of the team. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like he was the worst thing that was happening with the Steelers. Like, he wasn't the biggest issue. And so, I felt like if we dealt with some of those other issues, I agree with Allison that maybe it doesn't matter as much as people are acting like it does. I still think if you're really just running with the bridge quarterback, why would you not run with the much younger, more athletic guy? But we probably shot ourselves in the foot by not just signing Justin Fields before last season and offering him a 2-year contract or something when he was desperate. Now he's going to be like, you didn't want me then. I'm going to go shut myself around. And they're probably 2 of the best free agent quarterbacks on the market because the market is so bad this year.
Right. It's bad. And this could come down to financial decisions too, right? Because if they don't have to resign, because Wilson's going to probably want about $40 million for 2 years. Right, maybe 40 to 50 is my guess in that range. I think you can get away with paying Fields about $7 million for a year. 7 to 10, and that could be a big figure because one thing the Steelers do have going for them is they should have a decent chunk of change to spend on free agency. Now, if you don't bring Russell back, you have a nice chunk of change. And so, that could play a part into it too. That's the thing. You're right. We have two of the best free agents in the market. I think I'm with what Allison's saying is I'm not sure either one of them has me, jumping up and down. So it's 6 of one, half dozen the other who you bring back. I don't think, oh my God, thank God they're bringing Fields back. Or, oh my God, thank God they're bringing Wilson back. It's just like, okay, pick which one you're bringing back and we'll roll with it.
I feel like Fields at least has like potential. Like you could have him come back and he could improve within the franchise and good coaching, and he could be something better. But I feel like with Wilson, he's old. Like
let me go back to something you said.
Older.
Something you said last year. It stuck with me, LeeAnn. I thought you were right at the time. Well, actually, at the time I disagreed with you, but I think you may be right now.
Why you remember what she said last year? Holy!
I don't remember what I said 5 minutes ago.
Well, LeeAnn questioned. I think we did that podcast when I think they made the switch, and LeeAnn questioned you. She was worried about what this did to his mental, fortitude with this, and so now her questioning that really does come into play, because what does happen if you let Wilson go and you're like, okay, it's your reins again, but is that in the back of his mind? Is he mentally ready? Is he pissed off like, I'm going to show I can prove? Or is he going to have that sense of doubt like, well, I'll do well until they think this new rookie they just drafted is going to come in and replace me? So I think that plays a little bit into it too. I think you were kind of predicting a decent future there, because here we are, and I think that really comes into play if Wilson goes. If Wilson stays, probably not as much, but if he goes, LeeAnn, I've been thinking about that, and I think that could really play into this.
I think Fields has to feel like I need to make my money. Do you know what I mean? Like, how many players get like a third shot? I mean, quarterbacks get like a third shot to really like go and lead a team. Do you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen very often. Usually, if you don't pan out in your first team, and maybe you go to a second team and you don't pan out, then you're like a lifetime backup somewhere. They don't usually get like a third shot. So I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he feels like he can be the bona fide starter. And he feels like he can make some money. Russell Wilson's made his money. So I know everybody predicts that Wilson will make far more than Fields if he stays in Pittsburgh. But I think Wilson is the more likely to take a team-friendly deal, because he just wants to keep playing and be a part of something. And why wouldn't he want to start all over again?
I don't think you can name one team right now. Anyone can tell me one team that would say, yep, we'll bring him in as a bona fide starter. I don't think you can name one.
Either one. Fields or
right. Or yeah, Russ. Great point. Good point.
I don't know. I feel like somebody will offer him that. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's weird stuff going on in some of those teams. So I think there's a shot. I mean, they brought up the Raiders as a possibility. I think, there's some teams out there that are pretty desperate. And I think that, football egos take over at times, and you'll be like, oh, well, they didn't, they should have left Justin Fields, who was playing the best football of his career in Pittsburgh, when he took the team to 4-2, and they should have left him in there. And we saw that spark, and we are so smart, we can make him even better.
Winning is important. He was 4-2. Actually had a better record than Russell Wilson.
I think if anybody on the Raiders would take a shot at it, they'd take a shot at Russell Wilson now.
Yeah. My case for Justin Fields is if the offensive line sucks again, Justin Fields can just run away from that. We saw him do that when he was starting. Somebody would run right at him because probably Broderick Jones or whoever or somebody just totally missed him, and Justin Fields like, oh crap, and just ran away from him, and he ran for 20 yards.
I think even if the offensive line gets better, it's going to take them time too. That's the other thing. It's not going to be like
and Fields would buy them time to get to get better. But as me and Allison mentioned a few weeks ago, if you do bring Fields on, you got to let him do his thing. You got to let him run. Let him, as Allison said, let Fields plow.
Yes, let Fields plow.
Let him do his thing, because I understand why they did it last year. They said, okay, you're you got to be ultra conservative because we don't want you giving up, all these turnovers like you did in Chicago. I get that, but you got to. He's an excellent running quarterback. He's just as good as Lamar Jackson or Daniels or anything like that. Just let him let him run all the time and let him be a primary runner. And then it's like, oh, okay, you want to try to run? Okay, then we could use a pass also, and hopefully that works. But just let him do his thing. Don't hold him back.
Yeah, unless they don't have a decent backup quarterback.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Because if you're running all the time,
who's that going to be?
Right. Yeah. Skylar Thompson.
Yeah. Skylar Thompson. Because I don't think we're going to draft a quarterback this year. I mean, maybe they take some very late guy. Do you know what I mean? But I just don't think there's anybody that makes any sense.
It's not a bad quarterback draft, but it's certainly not great. Will Howard's kind of intriguing to me. Sitting there,
guys that are like kind of intriguing or decent are going to be long gone. It's going to be like the Kenny Pickett year. Everybody's going to reach for these couple of guys, and they're going to get drafted way earlier than they should have.
Yep.
Go for a project like in the 3rd or 4th round or something like that. Right. Somebody that's not ready now.
Now that we know
Milroe,
taller than Kenny Pickett's. I mean, that I can't listen to that for another 4 years.
And that to me, that to me is like why you sit there and say, to me, rebuild. I'm all for trading some of these guys so you can get for it because I don't think a lot of people realize in this, and I know it's a Steeler podcast, but when the Penguins traded and got a 1st-round pick the other day, and I wrote this down because I thought it was kind of apropos to what we're talking about. That gives the Penguins 29 selections over the next 3 NHL drafts, which includes 4 first-round selections and 15 picks in the first 3 rounds. No team has more draft picks. They're not even within like 7 or selections in the first 3 rounds over the next 3 years than the Penguins. So Penguins are going to stink this year, probably not making the playoffs. Okay, but they are set up to possibly, hopefully, resurrect this and get themselves back in to the groove of things. And that's where I feel like the Steelers need to be. And to your point, Allison and Joe, draft smart. Draft smart now. Don't make the reach for the Shedeur Sanders and all this crap. Draft smart now and hopefully make some trades and start building this back up. I'm not saying the Penguins are going to win the Stanley Cup in 2 years. I'm saying they are set up to hopefully resurrect this franchise.
The Steelers are in the state of Pennsylvania, and they are also in the state of denial. They don't think they need to rebuild because the standard isn't the standard, and I mean that's going back to what Rooney said and Tomlin. But anyway, let's talk Super Bowl. Is this? I said this is this is like choosing between constant vomiting and constant diarrhea.
Right. I'm
not happy about either team. Oh, by the way, and all you people who said I'm not going to watch, you're going to watch. Shut up. But anyway,
we're all watching.
I'm not going to watch.
Are you serious? Or are you being sarcastic?
No,
really?
I'm dead serious.
What are you going to do? I'm curious.
Out of town, and with the time difference and everything that's going on, make it way too hard to watch, and I don't even feel guilty about it. Might be the first Super Bowl I haven't watched though in my entire life.
Right.
Wow.
I'll watch. I'm in a euchre tournament that day, so we got a euchre tournament going on for charity, and I was going to watch the game with a bunch of.
What time does the game start? Like 8, 7,
6:30, I think.
6:30. So it'll be like noon for me. So maybe.
Where are you going to be? I didn't hear about this. I must have missed that.
We're going to be in Hawaii.
Oh, I love Hawaii.
Yeah, every year my husband and I gave up buying each other gifts a few years ago for Christmas and our birthdays. Our birthdays are February and March. And instead we travel somewhere. And this year we're going to Maui for 3 days to whale watch. And then we're taking a hopper flight to Kauai to spend the rest of our time. So on my birthday on Friday, we'll actually be out on a boat whale watching because it's the whole reason we picked it this time of year is because it's like
that's when they're there.
Migrate, yeah,
that's when they're there. And I always laugh. The PGA was at Kapalua a few weeks ago, and I got to play that once. The story goes, and I won't get into details, but I golf with I won't say who it was because I still try to keep it secret because I was asked. I golf with a very, very famous baseball manager, and we golfed at Kapalua, and he actually said it before I did. We were at like the third tee box. And he goes, holy shit, how do you golf here? Because there's like humpback whales just breaching, like 20 yards from the tee box. And you're like, good God. And I mean, it's just, and they're only there for like another month. And if you like by the end of February, they're gonzo. So that's awesome.
Yeah. If you watch 1 minute of the Super Bowl, you're crazy. Yeah. That's
So it'll be at noon, and I don't know where we'll be on Sunday, somewhere on the island of Kauai. And I'm sure we'll be able to tune into some of it, but not sad about it.
I've heard this argument for why you want to root for the Eagles. Here we go. This is if the Chiefs win, as Allison said, nothing really matters. None of this matters. The Steelers could get an all-star at every position in the draft and free agency, and they still won't beat Mahomes. Mahomes is Thanos. He is inevitable, and he's just going to keep winning the damn thing until he decides to, I don't know, go cheat on his wife or go run with Taylor Swift or whatever. If the Eagles win, it's like, okay, there's hope. Look at how the Eagles constructed their team. They constructed with a great offensive line, a great defensive line, great wide receivers, a great a running back, a pretty good quarterback. They've done everything right. They did everything you want to do as a franchise. You pick the right players, and they got the right coaches and everything. But if the Chiefs win, it's like it's all inevitable. All we're doing is we're all fighting for second.
Yeah.
I said earlier to somebody that it's like we're going to look back in 20 years and be like, talk about these past 20 years have been like this bizarre age of the super franchises with Brady and then with Mahomes. Do you know what I mean? But even with Brady, they didn't win every single year. You know what I mean? 3 in a row, where it just felt like they were always going to win. You felt like the teams that came in, Brady was really good and hard to stop, but you felt like, at least for me, it felt like the other teams most of the time had a shot. But against Mahomes, it just feels like they're fated to win everything. It feels like the refs are in their favor. It feels like the league is in their favor. It feels like this is the narrative that they want them to get this 3 in a row. I hate it. Yeah. So cheering for the Eagles as much as I can't stand the Eagles.
I think it's funny that Goodell came out the other day and was like, if you think that, there's something going on, some conspiracy with the Chiefs, you're delusional. And it's just why even say that?
The ref said something today. It's like, how dare you think we like the Chiefs? Bro, your uniforms are red and white. What are you talking about? You love them.
Right. But I mean, there's so many ridiculous calls, and it's just so frustrating to watch. Do you know what I mean? The clear first down that Josh Allen had. Do you know what I mean? The way that they tend to call things for them or not for them, differently than they do for the other team when they're playing them. I mean, look, the Steelers had no chance to win that game against them, but there was still stuff that went on in that game that left you scratching your head. And you have to think if we were going to get our butts kicked anyways, just let us do it naturally.
Right. Well, and I think even the announcers are having a hard time hiding it. Right. And the week before the Bills game, I forget who the Chiefs were playing off the top of my head. And Mahomes, dove out of the bounds and the flags came flying. And even Tony Romo said, I get it. I get a lot of defensive players in the league are getting tired of this and are fed up with this. And he kind of stopped short of probably saying more than what he should have, trying to be objective, viewer, right? But I mean, even they're having a hard time hiding that it's getting ridiculous. It really is. I think I like Saquon Barkley, Penn State guy. I've watched him since he was in high school through Penn State, so I'm rooting for the Eagles for that sole reason, and that's it. I don't think they'll win. I think it's crazy to bet against the Chiefs right now.
Yeah.
All right, and on that depressing note,
right? Yeah, exactly.
So Kevin Stefanski, you can get a hold of Allison. Her number,
right?
Is
yeah. Call 555. No.
It does make you feel though, real quick before you sign off. It does make you feel like if for every team in the NFL that's not the Chiefs, why bother? Do you?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe go ahead and just rebuild these next couple of years and focus on that rather than trying to win because you can't anyways.
Yeah, that's a good point. Rebuild while Mahomes is in his,
I think if this were the Bills and the Lions, I think would have potential to have the highest Super Bowl ratings in history.
That would be so much fun.
By far, it'd be so much fun. I think even in Kauai, you would be trying to find a bar to watch the Bills.
Yeah, it would be really fun to see something different.
Yes.
Even if it was Lions against Chiefs, that would be like we would all be rooting for the Lions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. Kevin Stefanski call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Call.
Allison's available.
I think there has to be a cuter NFL coach. I'm going to do research on this. I think there has to be a cuter NFL coach.
And Allison's a native, so
the
it's not
cute
like
NFL draft.
Right, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm from Ohio, Kevin. Come on. Come on.
That's right, you are. I forgot about that.
I am, yeah.
We've turned into coaching Tinder. What the heck is going on?
Coaching Tinder. Yes.
Oh God.
Left or right or whatever on Allison, please. Whoever's a good one, I don't know.
Yeah, wait a minute. LeeAnn's married. Allison, are you married? I'm not even sure. Okay, so Allison, they're all going to dogpile on
She's
Allison.
Single and ready to mingle with coaches.
Married, though. That's the thing.
Well, maybe after a night with you, he won't be. He hasn't seen the
maybe
goods.
once he sees the show, he won't be.
Yeah,
right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like trading Myles Garrett and my wife.
NFL 2K, the show featuring Allison.
Okay, that was fun.
We got off the rails.
Guys, I'm still so happy that you're all here. This is so awesome seeing you guys again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thanks to everybody in the live audience.
Trip to you, LeeAnn. Enjoy it.
Happy early birthday. Enjoy Hawaii.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Have a good week.
You too.
Oh, see you.
Thank you guys. Bye.